Hello and welcome to week 6. So we're almost there, and congratulations for hanging in there. I know it's been a tough 5 weeks, but you made it. No? So this time, for this week 6, we do not have a case study. We have 2 readings. One is Rothschild, chapter 7. And this is a very concrete chapter, as in it deals in therapeutic techniques that you can use with your clients. It has case studies, so it's a really good, I think it's an easier to read chapter than the others. Now this week it's all about integrating everything that we have learned about symptoms of trauma and the various treatments that are available. And this week, like both Van der Kolk and Rothschild, focus on the types of therapeutic techniques that you can use with clients. So overall, I think this week is a little bit lighter than the past few weeks in terms of readings. Let me look at the exercises here, the assignments. We have 3 assignments, and one is a discussion on the film Antoine Fisher. If you have not seen it, you can order it from Amazon. There are some instructions. I want to give you a heads up that if you haven't watched it, it is a difficult film to watch because almost every kind of trauma is depicted in the film. And it might bring up some memories for some of you, so please exercise caution. You don't have to watch it at one go. You can watch it in, bits and pieces. And then we have, you're going to post a discussion on this reflection, and this is on the film, and these are the 6 questions that you have to answer, and I'll go over each one of them. My suggestion is read this before you watch the film, maybe even write it down on a piece of paper, and as you watch the film, if something strikes you, just write it down below these questions, so that way it's easier. You don't have to go back and think. You can process as you're watching the film. So what occurs that engages Antoine in therapy? So this is a very angry young man, and as we know from everything that we've heard, he is really exhibiting symptoms of trauma. He's very reactive, quick to anger, quick to jump into a fight. So his amygdala is overactive. So he's not taking too kindly to be told to, go see a therapist. He's very resistant. So what is it that changes his mind? The therapist tells him, come for 3 sessions and then we'll see. So you will get to know a lot of it right at the beginning of the movie as to what changes. How does he change during therapy? So what are some of the things that he's exhibiting, and then what are the changes that occur as he talks to his therapist? And the client is not the only one to change in therapy. It's a human interaction. So when we interact with someone, even as therapists, we change. We learn something from them. And I think this is something that we need to keep in mind as we talk to our client, because if we go in with that attitude that, this client is a human being and is suffering from something, it shows in our demeanor, and they feel valued, they feel respected, and the relationship really takes a different turn. So you're not talking down to them, you're not talking at them, you're meeting the client where they're at. So this therapist also changes once he starts interacting with Antoine. So what happens? Okay, once he's done therapy, what does he need to do in order to reintegrate into the culture after the therapy? So there's no one answer for this. I'm really looking for what you understand from all the readings that we've done so far as to what does Antoine really need to do. Consolidation of gain in the therapy, like what did he achieve, and what does he need in order to trust people outside of the therapeutic relationship. So he is trusting his therapist, he's taking little risks, but how does he engage with the world at large? Do you have any concerns about the therapist's behavior? And there's a lot of places in the movie while you might say, oh, like, what is this person doing and why is he doing that? And again, there is no right answer to this, but I'm really looking for a discussion. There are no right or wrong answers to any of these questions. What I want you to do is literally keep in mind micro, meso, macro, and therapeutic intervention. This is something you have been doing for the past 6 weeks, and it is going to help you while you view this movie. And I think it has a bit of everything in it. Okay, so macro is the institution of foster care. Macro is the Navy. Macro is prison. Macro is a lot of things in the movie, and so you can approach it from that side, that dimension. Of course, there's a lot of micro, as this child is placed in a home which is not safe, and you have a lot of meso, which is he has supportive people in his life, he has abusive people in his life, and how he is impacted. Okay. And other than that, you have symptoms of trauma like flashbacks. That's very, very clear as to what he's responding to, certain words, phrases, actions, and how he completely loses it when he is faced with a trigger. The symptoms of trauma are very subtle in relationships, especially intimate relationships. So you have got a lot going on there. So this movie was made to be studied as a case for trauma. So take a look at it, and like I said, you can analyze it while you're watching it if you just have these 6 questions in front of you. And then you will post about 200 words to a maximum of 500 words, and you will respond to 2 of your classmates. And you will, in your responses, you will describe what you've learned and what you can add to their learning. So this is Antoine Fisher. And then we have the technique demonstration and a journal that's due. So this is it for week 6. Van der Kolk also, he talks about a variety of techniques. He talks about theater for trauma. He talks about internal family systems. Above all, he's talking about agency of self. Is how do you gain control of yourself, and how do you use that control to then interact with the world. So both Rothschild and Van der Kolk are chock full of examples and case studies and really interesting techniques. This is really something all organizations should have. So I'm going to briefly go over the PowerPoint, and you may actually recognize your own organization being one of the organizations that they're talking about here. So they're talking about the fact that organizations, like individuals, can become traumatized. And many of our organizations are unaware of the ways in which stress is impacting their employees. I'm sure that this presentation is going to be very familiar to many of you who are already working in agencies. So people are chronically hyper aroused and have lost the capacity to manage emotions institutionally, which means that if something happens in your organization, you might have a response like, well, no one cares, or what's the point of going to someone with it, because you know you're not going to be heard, and you're burnt out with the cases you're handling. Okay, so leaders are more punitive, and the entire environment may become violent and unjust. There's a lack of basic safety, abusive behavior on part of managers. Okay, and then you have vicarious trauma, which means the population that we deal with all the time are so traumatized, but we are not offered a cushion or some kind of help to absorb this trauma. Okay, and we just go into work day after day after day, meeting cases that are really horrific, and people who've been through so much pain, but we absorb their pain but do nothing for self-care, and that ends up being vicariously traumatizing. Workers may develop difficulty extending empathy to clients and become emotionally anesthetized. Emotional distress escalates, tempers grow, decision-making becomes impaired. I'm not saying everybody goes through this, but this is a recipe for burnout. Okay. Let me see. There's another slide. What should it look like? This is a sanctuary program. It used to be implemented in a lot of places, but I think the funding kind of ran out, so it isn't anymore. So the program should be strong, resilient, tolerant, caring, knowledge-seeking, cohesive, and non-violent. Staff are thriving, and there is trust in the environment. So you are aware that not only are the clients traumatized, but so are the staff, and there are programs in place to help the staff as well, not just the client. So there's if that happens, there is a decreased staff turnover, decreased use of coercive measures, less injuries. So knowledge, empathy, compassion for the client as well as the staff equals to the sanctuary model. What else? Okay, that was about it, but this is just a new take on an organization, that even an organization can be traumatized. It doesn't have to be an individual. Good example of the macro as well is how can we, when we talk of therapeutic interventions in the macro sense, how can we help clients by helping organizations become more trauma sensitive and follow models like this one. All right, so that's it for this week. As usual, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.